Well, good evening, everyone. This is our fourth Sustainable Rural Communities Forum, our Moving Forward Forum, we call it. The first one was on the role of artists in creating a sustainable rural community. The second was on the role of elementary educators. The third was on the role of healthcare professionals. And tonight we have three excellent small business leaders who will be our panel and help us to look together at what is the role of small businesses in creating a sustainable rural community. Our panelists tonight are Jeremy Harden, Managing Director of the Washington County Farm Bureau, Cynthia Kane, owner of Little Red Hen Cafe and Cinnamon House Bed and Breakfast, and Sean Malloy, co-owner of Kentucky Royalty Alpaca Products. So we have a wonderful diversity of businesses and three really creative panelists here to share with us tonight. So welcome all of you and thank you for being here. Jeremy, would you be willing to start and talk to us for about 10 minutes about the role of small businesses in creating a sustainable rural community?
I thought it was important kind of to start out with what is a sustainable community, and as I was looking, of course you can find different definitions and different terminology, and I kind of stumbled across this one. It says a sustainable community is one that is economically, environmentally, and socially healthy and resilient. It meets challenges through integrated solutions rather than through fragmented approaches that meet one of these goals not at the expense of others. It takes a long-term perspective, one that's focused on both the present and future, well beyond the next budget or just the next election. And it breaks down the different, some of the different aspects in sustainability, and economic security is one that you're always going to run across, and of course that's one of the main stays of small business in a community. And in economic security, community members equitably benefit from a strong and healthy community-centered economy, diverse and financially viable economic base, reinvestment of resources in the local economy, maximization of local ownership of businesses, meaningful employment opportunities for all citizens, responsive and accessible job training and education programs that enable the workforce adjust to future needs, and businesses that enhance community sustainability. And when I went back through that thinking about my small business, and actually I do have the Washington County Farm Bureau, and I also have a farming operation that is definitely a small business. And I got thinking about how my small business, the role that it plays in the community. And when you really think about it, it's the same as every small business. I have 2 full-time employees. I have a part-time employee also, and another agent in the office that is employed by Kentucky Farm Bureau, which is our parent company. But Washington County Farm Bureau is my own business. I'm independent contractor. I hire my own employees. I pay my own payroll. I have my own insurance. And, you know, I got thinking about what I'm responsible for as a small business owner, and that's the lives of my employees and their livelihood, their children, their spouses, their insurance, their paychecks every week. And if you think about small business, especially in Washington County, if you were to wipe every small business out of Washington County, you're probably going to take 75% of the workforce out the door. And it seems like in economic development, we've focused on, let's get the big factory. Can we land the next factory here and hire 150 or 200 jobs? Well, that's great if you do. But when that factory closes, you lose 150 to 200 jobs. When you lose one small business, and we don't want to lose any, you lose 2 or 3 jobs, and hopefully they can find employment elsewhere because they're skilled, they're trained, they know the community, they've been involved in the community. And when I got thinking about that also on the farming side of it, there's some programs that's been available to agriculture for diversification, and one number that's always been thrown out is the economic multiplier of 6. And that economic multiplier of 6 basically says every dollar that we got through the program turns over 6 times in the community and multiplies by 6. So if there's $100,000 in a grant that goes to 30 or 50 farmers, that turns into $600,000 for Washington County. How does it do that? One that I did was a fencing program. And I bought all my fence from a local dealer. That local dealer hires 3, 4, 5 employees. He buys as much local as he can. He gets his gas locally. Not only did I buy the fencing supplies locally, I hired somebody to help put up the fence locally. I bought gas every time I needed gas or something for the chainsaws or the tractors. That money turned over 6 times. So if you think about the impact of a small business in the community, number one, the jobs that they create and keep, and then each of those employees turning their money over 6 times, the economic impact is huge for small businesses. So for a sustainable community, I see no way that a community can survive without small business. That's basically the highlights that I wanted to touch on.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you very much. Cynthia?
I'm going to start with a reading. This is a paragraph from a book, Essays by Wendell Berry, What Are People For? In this difficult time of failed public expectations, when thoughtful people wonder where to look for hope, I keep returning in my own mind to the thought of the renewal of the rural communities. I know that one revived rural community would be more convincing and more encouraging than all the government and university programs of the last 50 years. And I think that it could be the beginning of the renewal of our country. For that, it could be the beginning of the renewal of our country. For the renewal of rural communities ultimately implies the renewal of urban ones. But to be authentic, a true encouragement, and a true beginning, this would have to be a revival accomplished mainly by the community itself. It would have to be done not from the outside, by the instruction of visiting experts, but from the inside, by the ancient rule of neighborliness, by the love of precious things, and by the wish to be at home. And Wendell Berry wrote that more than 20 years ago, almost 25 years ago, in an essay called The Work of Local Culture. And of course, I don't think he knew when he wrote that he would be, he and his family would be bringing a program here to Springfield and to St. Catherine to do just what he was talking about, to work within one local community. So I thought that was very beautiful, because to me that speaks to the vision of what a small community can do and what small businesses within small communities can do. I have been a business owner, I don't think I've ever even said that out loud, for less than 2 months. However, when I had this shocking realization that I had never run a business, when I realized that I had never, in my 57 years, even punched a cash register, ever. I also realized at the same time that for the past 20 years, I in fact have run something like businesses, because I've been a minister for 20 years. And churches are very much like businesses. The Unitarian Universalist Church of Lexington, where I've been the minister for 13 years, is a $250,000 enterprise with more than $1 million in assets and 300 clients. And many of the things that go on within a church are the same kinds of things that have to happen within a business. So then I calmed down a little bit. But I also realized that what makes a church successful, a nonprofit successful, is what you have to look at if you're going to have a business, and that is, what is your vision? And for me, the whole reason that I even considered doing this in this community, Springfield, is that I saw a community that had a vision, a really beautiful one. And I think it ties into this reading that I just did. I think if you can find a place where the people kind of get it, and the vision, the passion that you have and what you bring can meld in some way with the needs and the desires of the people, and there can be some intersection there, I think you have the potential for a successful small business. And then you have to decide, well, what is your vision, and does your vision make sense for the people who would actually patronize the business that you're going to offer? So for me, I have a small cafe, and it's very organic. I don't mean that the food is organic. Some of the food is organic. What I mean is the enterprise is organic. And by that I mean that it is telling me what it's going to become. And the people, the local people, are telling me, like they are actually telling me in words, what they want and need. And they are also telling me by coming in or not coming in, what excites them and what seems important to them. And that's how we're finding out. And to me, something that is organic is something that you don't force from the outside, just like he said. It's a process. You have to be patient. It takes time, and it involves a lot of listening and caring. And it can't be about just money. It has to be about something beyond money. My vision, you know, it can't just be mine. It can't just be what I think is cool. What I told someone from the beginning when I bought this house, the idea about the B&B seemed like the bed and breakfast seemed to be something that could work in Springfield. The little cafe part, I don't know. Everybody kept saying, well, you could do this or you could do that. I said, yeah, I could come in and open, you know, some kind of a store that sells, you know, cut glass or something. But I mean, just because I was passionate about cut glass or smoked liver or whatever, that doesn't mean that that's what the local people need or care about or care for. There has to be a connection there. My vision about the cafe comes from my roots, and it comes from my passion. And my passion is about whole food, and it comes from growing up in a rural place. It was New Jersey, even though everybody just thinks New York City, and they hear New Jersey. I grew up across from a dairy farm. I grew up in a farming, you know, small town. My dad was a gardener, and I also became very interested in whole foods when I had natural childbirth and breastfed my children, my now grown children, for a long time. So that was where my passion, my vision came from. And that's really carried throughout my adult life and developed through my religion and my faith and my learning. And that's what I brought to the community. How can I bring that together with what this community, with what Springfield cares about and wants? Are there enough people who care enough, you know, to come in? Maybe they have to walk a few steps to come in there. I don't think they have to spend a lot more money, but maybe there's a more limited menu. Maybe it's not open the same hours. Maybe there's a smaller seating place. Maybe they have to find out what's in there. But do they care enough about buying food that is purchased from local places, that's as close to its natural state as possible, that's not, that doesn't have a lot of additives in it? That remains to be seen. But that's the vision that I bring to it, and it's very new, so we'll see if that really happens. I decided to write my vision down, since I thought, well, I have to have a vision. I thought I would write it down for tonight, and really what it is about good food and building relationships. And good food, eating good food to me it doesn't have to be all vegetarian food, doesn't be all organic food, but it's food that is real, that is as local as possible, and is as close to its natural state as possible. And the building relationships is equally as important as the food. And that is about listening to people and about learning their stories. And it's about people's stories. So that's really what the Little Red Hen is about. It's about those two things. And if I put the emphasis on that, then the business will be successful if it's meant to be. If it's meant to be. And that's the same way I've always felt about the church. Don't put the emphasis on getting the people, or how many people, or how much money are they giving. Put the emphasis on what we're doing. Are we doing the right things, and are we treating people well? And the church will be successful. And then the other part is about the relationships, the eating good food and building relationships. And those are the two parts of the vision. So we shall see. Check back in a year or two, and it may change. That's the other thing about an organic business. I think if you look at successful small businesses, they're flexible. It may change entirely. It may shift into something completely different if that's what the community tells me. You know, it's like organic farming. If that's what the nature of the environment tells me needs to happen, it may need to change into something completely or slightly different. Then we'll see. Maybe that'll happen too. So, that's what I have.
Great, thank you, Cynthia. And Sean?
Okay, I'm going to take this from a different perspective. Well, first of all, my name is Sean Malloy, and it's an honor to be on this panel tonight. And my wife and myself live outside of Springfield on a small farm. And we moved here in 2008. We moved from Portland, Maine, in a small rural community up in Maine, to a small rural community in Kentucky. And why would we do that? Well, we actually just didn't move ourselves down. We moved our manufacturing plant down and our livestock business. So we moved two businesses down to the state of Kentucky and just happened to be planted ourselves in Springfield, Kentucky. The reasons why we moved to a rural community in the state of Kentucky, and we could have moved anywhere in the United States. We had no limits to where we could have moved. And it just, for some reason, Kentucky felt a good place to bring our family and our manufacturing and our livestock business. And I'm just going to go over those reasons because I think it's very important that a rural community can actually have so much going for itself, especially in Kentucky and where Springfield sits. Location, location, location. You can go anywhere, pretty much in a day's drive to local and major cities. Chicago, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., St. Louis, you name it, Columbus. And those are all potential markets for any small business. So I looked at that. I also looked at Kentucky values of property. They're not overly whelming, such as in Maine, the Portland area, where it's outrageous, and you can't have a farm without being a multimillionaire. So you come down to Kentucky. Not only that, but it's also the cost of doing business. You start looking at the cost of doing business, and I'm a small business, so everything I look at is, well, my taxes, my energy prices for electric and fuel, insurance. Coming from a very costly state to a small rural community in the state of Kentucky, my prices, everything has gone down in price for me. And it allows me to be competitive in the United States and the world, actually. The environment. What we saw for an environment in Kentucky is the rural communities, really so. What I love seeing is the small farm next to whatever plant. And from personally myself, as being an engineering and product development engineer for the last 20 years, I see it as an opportunity. You never know how your businesses are going to stray, and you might change direction. But I feel very comfortable being a farmer down in Kentucky, as well as if I have to go back into the real workforce. And Kentucky has quite a bit of manufactured wrapped around Springfield and throughout the whole state. The climate, I believe it's one of the nicest climates around. It's not too hot, not too cold. Maybe this year is a little different. But for what I do for livestock with alpacas, they can graze pretty much year-round. And that is awesome because they're pretty much, they're not too hazardous on the environment. They're very soft-footed. They don't eat right down to the roots. And but anyways, they can graze year-round. And then it's the people. If you start looking at the small communities throughout Kentucky, especially Springfield, where can you go where there's two colleges with about 3,000 people living in a small community? That is an incredible opportunity as a small business grows. And when you have a technical school less than a mile from your house, that's even better, because as I grow, I'll need more technical people to help me service my equipment and what have you. So these are the reasons why we moved to a rural community such as Springfield. I'm going to go into the businesses because we mentioned only one business as we started, and that was Kentucky Royalty. But I actually run 3 businesses out of our small farm. And the first one is our livestock business, which is Sunshine Alpacas of Kentucky, which is raising breed stock alpacas for sale, as well as I introduced a fiber herd exclusively for fiber at this point in time. We have the other business, which is Flaggy Metal Fiber Works, which is processing the fiber off the alpacas and manufacture it into yarns, rovings, blankets, and many other smaller products off of that. We also pride ourselves on, we have a design studio. So not only do we design our own products for Kentucky Royalty, we design products for people across the country. So we're designing rug yarn, we're designing blanket yarn, we're designing yarns for socks, and what we're trying to do is take that small rural developer that's raising these animals and they want to make a product, and we're giving them the hope that they can take that product to market where we can launch them to maybe a larger mill and allow them to grow their businesses. And that's what we do at Flaggy Metal Fiber Works. The last business was a startup business in 2009. It was Kentucky Royalty, and actually it was Kentucky Fiber Farm doing business as Kentucky Royalty. And what does that mean? Well, that is where we started focusing on the animals and totally integrating ourselves upwards, where we're taking the fiber, the mill, and then actually marketing and developing the product and going national and international with our product. And we're doing this all in a small rural community. Now I'm going to go to where what I believe, which makes the business, or I believe my business and my core values contribute to creating a sustainable community, or be part of that community. Supporting these core goals would be supporting family-based fiber farms or farms, supporting small businesses, and then within those small businesses, we're hopefully creating those jobs, protecting the environment. Hopefully farming in a way that I'm protecting the environment around my farm and around my community. And I take a lot of pride in giving back to community and for a lot of nonprofit organizations, not just in Kentucky, but throughout the country. I give back as much as I take, and I believe that's another core value that I have that's very important. When people see that you give, and you give a lot, it usually comes back to you tenfold. And it's not like I'm looking for it to come back, but it does work out. And that also increases networking and working. And that's what I have.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Sean and Cindy and Jeremy. I was struck, I was at a meeting Saturday at St. Catherine's, and I can't remember who the person was who wrote this, but they were quoting this statement, and what you said, Cynthia, made me think about it. The statement was that wholeness comes when our deepest gladness, my deepest gladness, meets the world's greatest need. And that's what I hear in what you're saying about your deepest gladness around food and healthy food and good relationships is hopefully going to meet the need of the community for those things. And I think each of you, in a variety of ways, is doing what brings your deepest gladness, and it's connecting with the world's greatest need. Sean, I think you have a contract that you're providing alpaca socks for the military all around the world, like hundreds of thousands of pairs of socks?
Well, I wish it was hundreds of thousands of pairs of socks. But what we're doing is that we teamed up with the Sock Brigade, which is part of the Bent Prop Project. The Bent Prop Project is finding missing in action in the Pacific Rim. And we got to know them through the Sock Brigade, a farm that raises alpacas. About 6 years ago, their son went over to Afghanistan, Iraq and Afghanistan. He called home and basically said, hey, my feet are freezing. We need socks. So they started sending socks on over to the troops overseas. When they do send socks over, it's 3 pairs of socks for every troop member. And usually a platoon, or I'm not sure how big sizes are, usually we send about 150 to 300 pair of socks at a time. We started doing this program with them 2 years ago, and the reasons why was we were making things in the United States. And we were buying and worked with them, buying fiber from them as well, is to contribute fiber to this cause. It's still going on, and we'll probably end up shipping another 1,000 pair of socks this year. But last year, I think we shipped over 4,000 pair.
I mean, who would think that in Springfield, not that they're knitted in Springfield, but the beginnings of this whole project is coming out of a small community like Springfield, and probably most of the residents of Washington County have no idea that that's going on in the county. I'd like you all to spend a little time interacting with each other about what you've heard each other say, and questions that you might have or observations you might have with each other. And then after a little bit of that, we're going to invite the audience to participate in the conversation.